There are certain nights in American history that remain forever etched into the hearts of the people who lived through them. Nights that changed communities, reshaped memories, and turned ordinary families into storytellers for generations. One such night happened in November of 1965, just weeks before Christmas. It was the night the lights went out across New York, New England, and parts of Canada, affecting more than 30 million people. But while newspapers later called it the Great Northeast Blackout, families remembered it very differently. To them, it wasn't a news event. It was an unforgettable human moment, a night where fear and wonder collided, where neighbors became family, and where simple candles became symbols of hope. This is the story of one such family, the Parker family, and the Christmas season they never forgot. The year was 1965, and Christmas excitement was already filling the air. In the small suburban town of Maplewood, New Jersey, the Parker household was buzzing with the familiar warmth of the season. John Parker, a hard-working mechanic at the local garage, was the kind of father everyone respected, strong, calm, and endlessly patient. His wife, Margaret, was the heart of the home. She had the most gentle eyes, the softest voice, and a way of making every holiday feel magical, even when money was tight. Their children, 11-year-old Emily and 8-year-old Sam, were full of the boundless energy and innocence that only childhood Christmas seasons can bring. Their small home sat at the end of Rosewood Lane, a street lined with maple trees that turned into white sculptures every winter. Houses decorated with hand-painted wooden ornaments, homemade wreaths, and strings of colorful bulbs that flickered gently in the cold evening air. It was the kind of town where neighbors shared sugar, families gathered on porches, and every child knew every adult by name. But tonight felt even more special. It was tree decorating night in the Parker household. Margaret had already planned the evening down to the last detail, just like every year. A pot of hot cocoa simmered on the stove, filling the house with the smell of chocolate and cinnamon. A Christmas record by Bing Crosby played softly from the living room. Emily was carefully unwrapping the fragile glass ornaments they used every year, some from Margaret's own childhood. Sam was trying to hang tinsel in the most chaotic way possible, laughing at his own lack of precision. John knelt by the tree, checking the string of lights, muttering to himself the same line he repeated every Christmas. Why is it that one burned-out bulb ruins the entire string? Every year, without fail, he said it, and every year, Margaret laughed. It was a simple, warm, ordinary family moment. But sometimes, the most unforgettable memories begin in the most ordinary ways. Around 5 p.m., Margaret called everyone to the dining table. "Before we finish decorating," she said sweetly, "everyone gets to eat one gingerbread cookie. One. Not the whole batch, Sam." Sam pretended to be offended, though he was already hiding a cookie behind his back. The snow outside was falling softly. Warm, yellow light filled the home. The oven hummed as another batch of pies baked. The radio played a soft hum of holiday music. Everything felt perfect. But fate had a different plan. At exactly 5:16 p.m., just as Emily climbed onto a small wooden stool to hang her favorite red ornament, a strange click echoed through the house. For a split second, John thought the bulb finally failed. But then, everything went dark. The tree lights, the lamp in the corner, the oven, the radio, even the street outside. Emily froze mid-motion. Sam gasped. Margaret turned from the kitchen, pie tin still in hand. "John?" she asked quietly. He walked to the window, and what he saw was unlike anything he had ever seen in his life. The entire neighborhood was drowning in blackness. The houses that usually sparkled with holiday lights were now cold silhouettes against the winter sky. But it wasn't just Rosewood Lane. A faint flicker in the sky hinted at something larger, a city miles away, also swallowed by darkness. "Dad?" Emily whispered. "What's happening?" John took a breath. I'm not sure." But he was a father, and sometimes fathers have to sound certain even when they're not. "Probably just a power outage," he said gently. "Nothing to worry about." But even he didn't fully believe it. Inside the Parker home, fear slowly settled in. The house felt colder without the heater. The silence felt heavy without the radio. The darkness felt suffocating. Emily clung to her mother. Sam wrapped his blanket around himself. Margaret tried to stay calm, though her heart beat faster than she let on. Then, from far away, they heard something. A distant shout, then another and another. Neighbors calling out to each other. "Is your power out? Anyone know what's going on? Is the whole town dark?" It became clear. This wasn't just a fuse. This wasn't just their street. This was something much bigger. John rummaged through the hallway closet and pulled out a small flashlight. Its beam was weak, but in that moment, it felt like a lighthouse in a storm. He turned to his family. "All right," he said softly. "Let's not panic. Margaret, get the candle set. Kids, stay close." Margaret nodded and opened an old wooden box. A box she only brought out on special occasions. Inside were the wedding candles. Tall, elegant, ivory candles with gold trimming. The same ones they lit during their wedding 15 years earlier. She had kept them all these years, unburned, waiting for the right moment. It seemed that moment had finally arrived. As she lit the first wick, the soft glow filled the room. The flame flickered against the ornaments and cast warm shadows on the walls. And the fear suddenly felt a little less heavy. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. John opened it to find their neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, bundled in a thick brown coat, holding an old lantern. "Are you all okay?" she asked. "We're fine," John replied. "No idea what's going on." "They're saying it's a massive blackout," she said breathlessly. "The whole Northeast, New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, even Ontario. Everything's dark." Margaret covered her mouth in shock. Sam asked, "Is Santa's workshop dark too?" Mrs. Thompson smiled. "I think Santa has his own generator." Her lantern swung softly in the wind as she continued. "A few families are gathering outside. If you want, we're trying to keep the kids calm. You should join us." John looked at Margaret, then at Emily and Sam. He nodded. "Let's go." One by one, families from Rosewood Lane emerged from their dark houses. Some brought lanterns, some brought candles, others brought flashlights or blankets. The whole street looked like a string of flickering fireflies in the night. Someone brought out a harmonica. Someone else brought a basket of cookies. Another neighbor dragged out a portable radio that barely worked on batteries. People who usually only waved politely at each other were now sitting together, sharing stories, sharing warmth, and sharing fear. For the first time in years, the entire neighborhood was united. The world may have been dark, but Rosewood Lane had never felt brighter. Margaret wrapped her children in blankets, pulling them close. Emily rested her head on her mother's shoulder, while Sam snuggled into her side. John stood near the curb, with a few other men, discussing what they had heard. Some said it was a system overload. Others whispered about sabotage, conspiracy, even war. Rumors traveled faster than the cold wind. But in the Parker family's circle of light, the fear slowly began to transform into something kind of magical. Mrs. Thompson played a soft tune on her harmonica. A few kids chased each other in the snow. Someone poured hot cocoa from a thermos. The darkness created a strange kind of intimacy, like the world had shrunk to just this one street. For the first time in a long time, people looked into each other's eyes and really saw each other. As the night went on, the temperature dropped. Margaret pulled her children closer. "Mom," Emily whispered, "is everything going to be okay?" Margaret kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. Nights like this remind us what really matters." "What's that?" Sam asked. She smiled softly. "Family, people, the warmth we create together. Lights can go out, but love doesn't." Emily closed her eyes, letting her mother's words wrap around her like a blanket. Years later, she would still remember that exact sentence. Across the street, John found himself staring toward the horizon, searching for even the faintest sign of city lights. Nothing. A vast sea of darkness stretched as far as the eye could see. Yet, despite the uncertainty, he felt strangely at peace. For once, there was no buzzing of machines, no cars rushing by, no distractions. Just silence. Pure, unbroken silence. And in that silence, he realized something important. Life had become too fast, too loud, too busy. But tonight, the world had forced everyone to slow down. For the first time in years, he felt fully present. He walked back to his family, sat beside them, and wrapped his arm around Margaret. "That's where I belong," he whispered to himself. Around 9 p.m., something unexpected happened. A soft glow began spreading across the sky. Not from city lights, but from candles. As far as they could see, across porches, windows, and streets, families had lit candles of their own. Thousands of tiny flames flickering in the darkness, dancing like stars fallen to earth. Rosewood Lane wasn't alone. Every neighborhood, every town, every block had created their own little islands of light. For one night, the world returned to the way it used to be, when evenings were quiet, neighbors were close, and candles were the heart of the home. Even Emily whispered, "It looks like Christmas magic." And for the first time, everyone agreed. By 10:30 p.m., families began heading back inside, their candles guiding the way. In the Parker home, Margaret lit the rest of the wedding candles. Their soft glow filled the living room, illuminating the evergreen tree that had yet to be fully decorated. Emily and Sam sat cross-legged on the floor, mesmerized by the dancing flames. John stoked the fireplace, adding a few pieces of wood until it crackled with warmth. And for the next hour, the Parker family shared stories, laughing softly, reminiscing, comforting one another. The fear had turned into something else entirely, a memory being born. At 11:20 p.m., a sudden hum echoed in the distance. A soft buzz, a mechanical groan. Then, the house lights flickered on. The heater roared to life. The refrigerator hummed. The tree lights blinked awake in a cheerful burst of color. Sam jumped to his feet, shouting, "The lights are back!" Emily clapped her hands. John and Margaret exchanged a small smile. But then something happened that surprised them both. Emily walked to the table and blew out every candle. Margaret blinked. "Sweetheart, why?" Emily looked up with the wisdom of someone far beyond her 11 years. "Because tonight was perfect just the way it was." And in that moment, everyone understood. The next morning, newspapers delivered the headline, "The Great Northeast Blackout." 30 million affected. Rumors flew around school. Adults swapped theories. The news replayed analysis again and again. But for the Parker family, the blackout wasn't about fear, chaos, or confusion. It was about connection. It was about the night the world slowed down long enough for people to look up from their worries and look toward each other. Decades passed. Emily grew up, moved away, and built a family of her own. Sam did the same. But every year, when Christmas came around and the lights flickered even for a second, someone, usually Emily, would say, "Do you remember the Christmas blackout of 1965? And Margaret, now a grandmother herself, would smile softly and say, "Yes, I remember it like it was yesterday. That night, we discovered what real Christmas felt like."